Hello, welcome to Tholoi
And that's it, Grace.
podcast. Today we will be talking about some NFL topics. Our first topic today is OBJ trade and the new look Browns. What do you guys think about that?
Personally, I think it's going to revamp their offense and add even more firepower onto an offense that really bursted on the scene last year. I mean, you put them with Jarvis Landry and Baker Mayfield, like that passing game is really, really just fierce. And I really don't know any defense that could stop it.
I mean, the way I feel about it, I feel like Odell Beckham Jr., he's top 5 receiver. He's been a top 5 receiver since his second year in the league, and he's dominant. He's explosive. He's the most explosive player in the league, except for maybe Tyreek Hill. But you throw him into that offense that has Baker Mayfield, David Njoku, Nick Chubb, Antonio Callaway. I just there's not a defense that can keep up with them. So I think that their ceiling is they could really be like a top 5 offense and be the winner of that division.
I think the Browns are a team that won 7 games last year, had 8 losses and 1 tie. I think this addition of OBJ makes the Browns a playoff team, and I feel like they have to play that way before we give them that. So the Browns,
I feel like that basically the sky's the limit for them with this trade. Basically, it just depends on their chemistry, how well they work together with that many good receivers and stars on one team. I feel like just adding them together with Jarvis Landry and Odell, especially them being old teammates, it's basically just going to skyrocket their receiving yards, their targets, and all that. Because they're definitely 2 big receivers that I feel like are just going to be unstoppable playing together.
all right, guys, bold predictions for next season. Let me start with this one. I think the Broncos had added Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco, I don't know if he's the answer to the Broncos' problems. The Broncos just had Case Keenum, who was a slightly below average quarterback, I would say, and you put another around average. He's played at above average before, but around now he's about below average. I feel like you add him to that team, it's going to be about the same. You're going to get the same result unless you add some more offensive pieces. You got some defensive weapons. Add some more defensive weapons. Maybe a Devin White at linebacker in this product. Yeah, so I think they're going to be – we'll see what they can do, man.
My bold prediction is that the Bears are going to push through and make a deep playoff run, if not make it to the Super Bowl, because they didn't lose anybody on defense. They had the number 1 defense last year. I think they add a receiver here in the draft and give Mitch Trubisky another weapon on the outside to threaten defenses. And going on defense, Khalil Mack's unstoppable. He really is. Best pass rusher in the league by far. And you combine that with their really good secondary that came on late. They're not big names, but they're very productive. So that's the bold prediction I have going into next season.
I think I got to say my bold prediction is probably going to be the 49ers. I think that if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, they've added Quan Alexander to replace Reuben Foster's absence, so they got a solid middle linebacker who can cover really well. They added D Ford, who was great off the edge for the Chiefs. And, they have the, second overall pick in the draft, and then they have 2 in the top 35. So it's like they can add 2 starters through the draft. They were missing their starting quarterback last year. So when he returns, I think that the sky's the limit for them. I think they can really make a playoff run, playoff push, That's mine.
I think the Raiders will probably have a deep playoff run next year. I feel like, especially with adding AB to their offense. Marshawn Lynch is still there, right?
Yeah, but he's not really playing a lot.
Yeah, I know.
But the thing is with the Raiders is that they got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds this year, which 3 are in the first. So
They
Like,
have
you really
some,
can't mess that up.
They've added some defensive pieces.
Who, the Raiders? Oh, they added Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah.
Who else did they add? I mean, you know about their offensive. They added the best receiver in the league.
Yeah,
Tyrell Williams as the number 2.
yeah. Tyrell Williams, which
he
is a
is
really
a
slept
great
on
receiver. Great
number
receiver,
2.
great X. And then, I mean, I feel like we can't downplay the addition of
Tight end.
Antonio Brown.
Jared Cook.
He might not return.
No, Jared Cook. They got a tight end.
I don't think so.
I mean, either way, like, you got 3 picks in the first round, and 2 of them are, one of them is a top 5 pick, and then the other 2 are late in the first round. But first round picks are first round picks, and especially with a draft that's as good as it is this year.
It's a lot of talent.
Yeah,
definitely a lot.
They could draft a good pass rusher early, and still be good.
Yeah. So moving on to our next topic, we'll be talking about maybe the biggest player in the draft or the biggest sleeper.
As a receiver, I'm gonna go ahead and say DJ Metcalf, definitely best receiver in the draft, kind of like right now.
Is he the best player though?
I mean, he's definitely put up the best numbers, but I mean, numbers aren't everything, you know. But hey, we'll see.
I'm gonna have to say, and I mean, touching base on what you said, I agree. I do think that DK has the highest ceiling in this draft.
Yeah.
But I think AJ Brown is the best receiver in this class.
His teammate?
I think he was the best receiver at that school. I think he can come in and be a number 1 receiver anyway. I mean, his height is not, he doesn't have the intangibles, but he ran a 4.49 at 6'1", 230. Drawing comparisons to Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he's going to be great.
I think one of the biggest players coming into the draft is going to be Nick Bosa. Sorry, I think he's the best pass rusher. I would take him over any pass rusher. Quinnen Williams, even though he played at Alabama, played against SEC talent all the time. Nick Bosa, he's just unbelievably good and talented, and he comes from a football family. Like, his brother Nick is a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, and he's been in the league for 2 years.
Yeah, no, Nick, his arsenal of moves is ridiculous.
That whole family's just athletically gifted.
I feel like you got to think, like, for him to have not played this last year and to still be a perennial top 3 pick, I mean, that just goes to show how good he is.
Yeah.
My biggest player, I think, in the draft would be probably DeAndre Baker. And then, my bad, I said biggest player, I said biggest sleeper. DeAndre Baker is a corner from Georgia with size. He has the intangibles. He has the athletic ability. He has the smarts, the football IQ. He can cover man-to-man. He can cover in the zone. He can do it all. I think DeAndre Baker is one of those corners who are going to be early to late second round. But in reality, I think he might be one of the better corners in his draft class.
What do you think about the Kyler Murray situation with him going possibly number 1, even though the Cardinals did just draft Rosen last year at number 7?
10th overall.
10th overall last year?
Yeah.
So do you draft Kyler Murray? I mean, he's a freak athletically, but after you just invested, last year in a quarterback, you're going to scrap that project after 1 season and move on?
I've been hearing that the Cardinals they like the kid, and then I don't know if they're really gonna get rid of him for Kyler. I think these are just rumors, honestly. I think they might just go ahead and get Nick again, honestly. I think those are just rumors.
Adding an edge rusher off of the edge, even though they added Terrell Suggs this offseason, I think that, Nick Bosa, what he can do, what is possible. I feel like, you want to get Nick, but at the same time, you got to think, he's added, Cliff Kingsbury from, remember his school from Texas Tech?
Yeah, he came from Texas Tech. So he recruited Kyler Murray coming out of high school, which, I mean, he said in interviews that if he ever becomes a coach, he wants Kyler Murray on his team, and
but of course
he's the NFL head coach with the number 1 draft pick. But I don't know if you use the number 1 pick.
Have changed.
Yeah.
Since then, you're not just
just because you have a crush on a quarterback.
I feel like Kyler Murray's ceiling, though, what he can potentially do is something that you might want to take that risk on.
All right, so our next topic is the AFC South predictions.
I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I think the Texans are going to win the South. And, I mean, as well as the Colts have played, and last year the Texans got knocked out. I mean, they were, Deshaun Watson's first playoff game. But, I mean, I think Deshaun he's definitely one of the future faces of the NFL. He's a superstar. And DeAndre Hopkins, still getting better somehow. Still, improving, still playing at a ridiculous level. So, not to mention JJ, and they're keeping Jadeveon Clowney.
Well, that is if JJ is, healthy for a full season, because that's a big piece, having him counteracting Jadeveon, because that's a nightmare for offensive lines to handle. But I'm gonna go with the Jaguars. They let go of Blake Bortles, which he gave him that one good season 2 years ago, and then fell off this year, which. It happens, but I really think Nick Foles is a top 10 quarterback in the league, and that defense is really good. You have arguably one of the best corners, if not the best corner, in Jalen Ramsey.
He is the best.
Yeah, and just their defense as a whole is really good. So I think the Jaguars bounce back after a bad season, and not to mention they have Leonard Fournette at running back too, which is a monster.
His healthiness is a big part of their offense.
Just piggybacking off what you're saying, I also think the Jaguars are gonna be the team to win the AFC South this year, because they've dived a little bit into free agency this offseason, and they picked up the likes of linebacker Jake Ryan from the Packers.
Yeah, they did do that.
Jake Ryan is a great addition to that already incredible linebacking core there with Telvin Smith.
Now they have a true Mike.
Right.
Telvin can play the outside and Miles Jack at the will.
Right. I think they also picked up Benny Cunningham. He can also get some carries right behind Leonard Fournette.
All right, so with our last topic, AB, Odell, or Le'Veon Bell, who makes more of an impact this year?
I'm going to say Le'Veon Bell, just for the simple fact that he's going to have to carry the load offensively for a while until they can add. Unless they add if they get a steal in the second round of the draft, I think Le'Veon Bell's going to have to carry it, because they have a young quarterback who's had one season under his belt, but I don't think Sam Darnold is that good of a quarterback, in my opinion. But you've got to have receivers on the outside and tight ends who can make plays for him. And Le'Veon is I put him above Todd Gurley when fully healthy.
I do agree. I think he's the best running back in the league when he's healthy.
Because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can rush for 1,000. He can catch for 1,000.
Definitely.
That's productivity at its finest.
I don't know about Le'Veon Bell being the workload that you might think he will be for the Jets this season, because
they've added some talent.
They have, but at the same time, the reason Le'Veon Bell, let's not forget, the reason why he was so productive in the things that he did was because he was behind one of the best offensive lines in the league in Pittsburgh. Without that offensive line, he's going to have to make stuff happen. He's going to have to do stuff on his own, and it's going to be hard. If Sam's still learning too, so it's going to be kind of hard for him. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle the load.
I'm going to have to disagree. So, I do think Le'Veon Bell is going to be a great impact on the Jets. But the Jets have added some guys. I mean, not only
especially defensively. C.J. Mosley.
Yeah.
C.J. Mosley is going to be huge. He's going to be great in New York. Fits their system perfectly. And they have the number 3 overall pick in the draft, so they get to add some more talent through there. But
they could add Quinn Williams as another pass rusher for that D-line.
And they already got Leonard, So it's like, you think, but offensively, I mean, you have, Quincy Enunwa.
Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson is a young guy that really isn't talked about. But he's a great receiver, got great size, and he's getting a lot better as a route runner. And we talk Sam Darnold. I mean, finished last year, 18 touchdowns, 16 picks. But I think after his rookie year, if you think talking quarterbacks, he probably had the second best rookie year out of all of them. So, I feel like, and they added Khalid Osmuli. So.
Okay. Well, that will be the end of our podcast. Thank you for coming. Signing out. This is Tholoi and
Isaiah Grice.
Paul Dennis.
And Brett Hammer.